Hello and welcome to ITU Presents. We are very lucky tonight that we are joined by Asif Ahmed. Asif is currently the leader of global product strategy at Discover. He's a very significant fintech expert. He is also, there we go. There's his business card to prove it.
Actually, that's my
there's his
card.
Discover
Credit card. Credit card.
There we go. There we go. There's his credit card to prove it. Asif also has had a successful career in media. He has been a film director, producer, writer, a very talented individual. He definitely understands transferable skills and the ability to understand what's happening in the business environment and how to make sure that companies and projects that he's working on are successful. So Asif, it's a pleasure to see you. Thank you very, very much for being here tonight. And without any further ado, please tell us a little bit about you and what's going on in the space of fintech.
Sure. So good evening, everybody. Yeah, as Jake said, my name is Asif Ahmed. I am actually in Chicago and global product leader for Discover. Jake, want me to tell you how I got into this role, right? So, I grew up in New Jersey, New York City, so just across the bridge, if you've been to the New York area, and went to LA to go to college, actually, with an interest in the film industry. So went to the same school as Jake, and did my undergrad degree at Claremont McKenna College, and then went to Pepperdine University for my MBA. So I started really out wanting to be a filmmaker, writer, director, and spent a lot of time working in all the studios. Used to work for RuPaul, if you know who that is, and ultimately decided that there was a lot more happening in the tech space, in the tech industry, and brought some of my film skills over to the tech industry. So I worked. I was an in-house producer at AT&T. I launched the video ad product for YellowPages.com. I was at Realtor.com. I did my own startup called First Person News, which was a citizen journalism news reporting app. And really, the skill set that I had was really in product management and product marketing. So I'm not a coder and I don't build and write things, but I come up with ideas. And how I ended up at Discover. So Discover moved me from LA to Chicago. So I spent 20 plus years in Southern California before saying, hey, let's go see what winter's like. And so I went to Discover, and they said, hey, Asif, you've built and launched a lot of products. You've taken a lot of products to market. So what we're really looking for is someone that can take products that we built for Discover Card, which is our US-based issuer, and how do we take them globally to work with our international issuers as well. And when I say issuer, right, so an issuer is just a bank that issues a credit card. And there's many logos that appear on a credit card, right? I'm sure we're all familiar with Visa and American Express. How many people here have a Discover card? You can raise your hand or give me a reaction just to see if you're familiar with. I see one hand, Discover card, couple hands. Okay. Hopefully you're familiar with the brands. Discover in itself was really one of the first credit card companies, and it launched in the 80s that gave you no annual fee. And it was the first company that gave you cash back. It was the first company that gave you free credit score. So we've been a disruptive player in the industry, actually really bringing new, I would say, consumer-facing experiences and traits to the credit card business. However, I don't work on the credit card business. So as I was telling you my story, right, I started at Discover. They said, hey, Asif, you build and launch products. We built all these products for Discover Card, as I showed you before. And it's primarily a US-based credit card, right? But we also own the Diners Club brand. So we issue a Diners Club card in Japan. We issue a Diners Club card in about 22 countries across the world. And we also have what are called network alliance partnerships. How many people have a Union Pay or JCB card? Anybody on the call? Union Pay is out of China, JCB is out of Japan. So what that essentially means is that with Discover is that we allow card issuers, banks, essentially in other countries, when they issue their own card, we provide what's called acceptance and global acceptance for their card. So what we find is that other banks, and this is a unique model to Discover, is that instead of these banks issuing cards with the Visa or MasterCard logo, which means they collect fees, we go to banks in all these countries around the world. There are about 22 countries. So JCB, Union Pay Card in China, HDFC or RuPay in India, Elo out of Brazil, Davienda out of Colombia, and I could go on and on and on. But the way the Network Alliance partnerships work, PROSA in Mexico, is that we allow those cards to use our technology, which means you get acceptance wherever Discover is utilized. And then you can keep, you issue the country, you issue obviously your card branded logo within your own territory, your own country, and you don't have to pay those fees that Visa and MasterCard would charge if their logo is on the card. But you being, I'm sure, international students, take your credit card from home and you come here into the US and you want to be able to use your card wherever you go around the world. So we say then you can use the Discover card wherever a Union Pay or any of these global cards want to go cross border. So wherever Discover is accepted or Diners Club is accepted, then all of these Network Alliance partners can be utilized as well. And I'm not sure it's going to show, but if you look on the back of this card, you can see that there's a Diners Club logo as well as a Discover card logo. So potentially if you have a Union Pay card or a JCB card or from any other countries I noticed, you could look on the back of the card and just see if there is a Discover logo or a Diners Club logo. So that gives global acceptance. So when I said I don't work on the card side, I work on what's called the global network side of the business. And the way to think about that is that Visa and MasterCard are actually global networks. Visa and MasterCard do not actually issue cards. If you're in the US, and that's the example I'm going to use, and you have a Visa card or MasterCard, it comes from Chase, it comes from Bank of America, it comes from Wells Fargo, right? Those are the banks that issue those cards. Discover and American Express are unique in the sense that we are a card issuer and we are a global card network. So I work on the network side of the business, which means that my goal is to make sure that we get global acceptance, and I really work on the technology side of digital payments, which means that we want to make sure that your Discover card or your Diners Club card, if you want to use in a digital payments experience, and that could mean Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Garmin Pay, or and some other experience I want to talk about, that you can use yours for a digital payment experience. So I'm going to pause there for a minute and really see if anybody has any immediate questions about anything I talked about the card network and card business. You guys are all grad students, Jake told me, so hopefully you guys have some insight to share as well.
I have a more of a basic question, Asif. Mm-hmm. Given what you just said, that Visa and MasterCard are not the issuers of the card, mm-hmm. and the banks are, right? So Chase, Wells Fargo, is your toughest competition as a company American Express, or who is your biggest competitor as a Discover?
Great question. So, I mean, no, actually, Visa, MasterCard, we're all competitors of each other, right? So the goal of the card business is really to be top of wallet. So anytime you shop at a retailer, we use the word merchant. We want you to use a Discover card. And if you're shopping with a Discover card this quarter, so the fourth quarter of this year, we do an incentive like cash back, right? So you get 5% cash back if you shop at Amazon, if you shop at Walmart.com, if you shop at Target.com, I believe you shop at BestBuy.com. So pretty much you do all your holiday shopping, you're going to get 5% cash back on all your purchases. So that's an incentive to get you to use your Discover card this quarter, and every quarter we switch that as well.
Well, I wish I'd asked that question before Black Friday, Asif.
Right.
Wish I asked that question a couple of weeks ago. I know and I were talking back then, so I should have asked it. All right. Anybody else have any questions so far in what Asif has talked about?
Yeah.
Asif. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Hi. How is Discover card different from other credit cards? sets it apart from everything else?
No annual fee would be the first attribute. It comes with a cashback which changes quarterly. So each quarter you get 5% on different categories. So this quarter's major retailers, sometimes it's restaurants, sometimes it's grocery stores. I believe in the summer we do it on gas. So if you're doing road trips and all that. So, and then you always get 1% cash back on all your purchases as well. So, that's I think I would say that's the big advantage of Discover Card.
And may I know how much is the credit limit if I apply?
Well, the credit limit's really based upon your income and your credit score, and you don't need to share all the information in front of your peers. But pretty much you would do an application. Okay. It's great for students, or if you haven't built credit yet, because this is a good, this is a good first card to have in your wallet, so and start to be able to use it.
Okay, thank you.
No, great questions. There's another one?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Hi, Asif. This is Javier Cisneros. So yes, I learned about Discover a couple of years ago when I joined in US University as an international student. It was like super simple to apply online, just put the social security number and I got it immediately, as you say, zero fees. One question I have with regards to credit cards, specifically the one that you mentioned, even though other companies can put their logos in your credit cards, all the transactions that are made with a Discover card go through Discover. So you have your servers and all your database with all the user account information. Will the people or the companies with the logos manage the transactions, or everything goes through Discover?
No, so really good question. So credit cards, if you notice, and I don't know if, I had a handful in college, right? They have 16 digits on them. And 16 digits really, is your account number, but that's also how we determine routing. So Visa cards start in the 4s, MasterCards start with the 5s, Discover's card starts in the 6s. And so what happens is when you swipe your card, when you dip your card, when you tap it, essentially, and all this is in the card, you have to think of the card networks as think of it as its own internet, right? The card infrastructure that we built or Visa built is, billions of dollars in investment. Everything's coming to our own servers, our own security, because the fraud is hugely important within this industry. And so when we don't want to ride on the open internet, so everything essentially comes from the merchant to the acquirer. And what happens when that transaction happens, this happens in milliseconds, is we're saying, this is a Discover card, this is a Visa card, and that transaction gets routed. So if it's a Discover transaction, it's getting routed to the Discover, and this is where I work on the global network, and it's getting passed to us, and that goes to the card, the actual issuer. So in Visa case, if there's multiple issuers, it might be going to Bank of America, might be going to Chase. It just depends on the bin range. So those first 6 or 8 digits of the card number determines what bank issued that card, who gets it, and where it goes. And all what happens in those milliseconds is it's going to go to your bank, and it's going to ask you at your account, in your case, Javier, it's going to say, you're buying, let's say, just $150 at Best Buy. And it's going to say, am I going to authorize $150 at Best Buy? Is it in your credit limit? Is your card in good standing? And in a millisecond, it's going to say, yes, let Javier's transaction go through. And it's going to send that back to the merchant across the whole network, so across the whole internet, our global internet. And right on that device, it's going to say approved, accepted, confirmed, and you get your receipt and you check out. And that happens in milliseconds, right? So that's decisions made right then and there. Otherwise, you might get a decline, you might get a call to issuer. So sometimes that happens, but that's how it works.
I see. Thanks for the explanation. How is Discovery preparing towards the evolution of the internet to Web3 with cryptocurrencies and peer-to-peer transference or transactions? That's out of curiosity.
Okay, so there are two different worlds, and actually, I'm going to touch on the little talk I'm going to give shortly. In the crypto world, right? So crypto in and of itself, right, is just a currency, right? So is there a credit card that then denotes things in a cryptocurrency versus dollars versus yen versus, versus euros is really where I think how it's a payment form, right? So I think crypto and credit cards are probably, and there's discussion, obviously, where does crypto touch the credit business? And that's ongoing. I don't know if there's are you buying Teslas in crypto? Where are you going to the grocery store and paying in crypto? It depends, who's accepting crypto at the merchant level, right? I believe Visa has like a crypto type credit card that they're talking about or might have launched. So I know it's something we're looking into, but that's, to me, we're about payments, right? And it's how you pay. So am I going to use cash? Am I going to use a debit card? Am I going to use a credit card? Or am I going to pay with crypto? So that's really a choice, consumer preference. And my role is really about enabling consumer preference and experience. When you talk about peer-to-peer, that's a push payment, right? So that's a real-time payment happening in a matter of seconds. And those apps or those tools you use in the US, such as Venmo or Square Cash or Zelle, etc., you can use your Discover card. And typically those are debit cards that you utilize within those spaces, although you pay a fee, right? So Discover has Discover Bank as well. We do issue a debit product. So you can take your Discover debit card, you can put it in Venmo, and you can push a payment to any of your peers right off of that Venmo. Venmo in and of itself is a wallet, right? Because Venmo actually holds those funds. And then you can obviously transfer those funds and you can push those funds back out to your bank account, or you can push those funds to a card. And typically you get the transfer, right? One's an ACH transaction that takes 2 days. One's an instant transaction, which they charge you maybe 75 cents for. And that's a push to a card transaction. So you can push to a Discover debit or Discover prepaid card. I'm actually working with Venmo right now to enable Discover for that experience. You could push to a Visa card today on Venmo. You couldn't push to a Discover card. However, in Square Cash today, you could push to a Discover debit card or Discover prepaid card. So that experience is technically enabled. Good question.
I see the question I had was mostly directly similar to Bitcoin, where you don't need the institution in between. You don't need Venmo, you don't need a bank. You hold your crypto and you can directly transfer from your wallet to the other person's wallet. So my question is how Discover is is it in their plans to facilitate this? Yeah.
Who's enabling that experience today where you can move from one, you're holding funds in crypto. So you're holding them in a crypto wallet, right? And how are you pushing that money to someone else right now?
You just send through you put their address, and you
their
just
address. Okay.
Their address. Yeah.
And are there any fees involved?
Yeah, they are gas fees. There's some small amount. Yeah. But that money does not go to an institution, that goes to the network.
Right. It goes between the two sort of crypto exchanges, right? Ultimately. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting world, right? Where we're moving to this crypto space. So where does a credit card company or traditional bank fall into that space? So I think that's definitely where does it happen, right? And where does that integration happen? So we have an innovation team that's looking into crypto and those experiences. I'm on the payment side. So payments mean ultimately that where there's a payment happening, right, at a merchant. So I'm buying some sort of goods, or I'm buying food, or I'm paying for a hotel or an airplane ticket. Obviously we enable these payment experiences to move funds to friends, peer-to-peer. But the biggest, I would say, the bigger use case of push payments, right, are going to be funds disbursements, we're calling that are from the gig economy, early access to your paycheck. What just happened with all the tornadoes ripping through Kentucky, right? What we call funds disbursements for insurance companies. So my house just got leveled by a tornado. I'm going to call my insurance company. My insurance company is going to push money right to a Discover credit card, prepaid card, and I can get a hotel or a meal for this evening. So that's an example of a push payment. If I'm pushing you cryptocurrency and you need a hotel tonight, I'm not sure what you're going to do.
I see. Thank you very much.
Yep. No, good question. Any other questions, or we can? Does anybody? Jake mentioned that some of you guys actually work as well, and you're grad students. So does anybody work in fintech? Anybody working for a bank or anything in finance? All right. So I'm not gonna talk through this whole deck. Jake, how long do we have?
We're here at your comfort, so I know that you have a busy schedule and you're giving up a lot of time when you are don't have a lot of time. I know your schedule, so I appreciate it. I think the time that you can give, please give us. How's that?
Okay. Are you guys into this? If we talk a little about payments evolution and all that kind of stuff?
Yep, that's what we're here for, Asif.
Can you see? I'm zooming and can you see this in like full screen? Does this look good?
Yep. Yes, it's clean.
Okay. Although I lost my speaker notes, so I'm gonna wing this because I can't see my actual script in front of me. So this is actually a talk I gave at Money 2020, which is one of the biggest fintech conferences in the world. And really the gist of the talk was about payments innovation. Is it revolutionary or evolutionary? And what we've seen in the world, right? And really the past 2 years during COVID, because COVID really, we're connected, but we're disconnected, yet we're connected behind screens and masks now, even as we are today, is that this, to me, COVID in itself was very revolutionary, right? It changed everything. It upended our world. But how we dealt with COVID was evolutionary, right? We made makeshift classrooms. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she had homeschooling, and we set up the dining table. We set up our office so it's pretty, and we put things behind us and all green screens or fake projections or etc. So, but that was evolutionary, right? That was not revolutionary. So, my argument is that as we think truly about innovation in of itself is incremental. It's not revolutionary, it's evolutionary. If innovation was revolutionary, it'd be disruptive, it would be jarring, just like COVID was. And really what happens with innovation, and this is really across all industries, and why it's incremental, is that we make adjustments, so we make improvements, we make failures, and we learn over time. And really that journey should never end. We should constantly strive to improve a product or improve an experience, but technology is going to allow us to do new things with that experience. And let me give you sort of an adjacent industry, just as an example, right? So you see in front of you, see a classic automobile, a gas guzzler, probably something that's fast, something that looks definitely fun to drive in California. But this car, if I told you doesn't have Bluetooth, doesn't have a GPS, doesn't have clean emissions, doesn't have power steering or power brakes, you might be like, that seems less interesting, right? I don't know if this car is as fun to drive. And it's definitely not a clean and efficient vehicle, right? Like an electric car. But the first electric car, if I told you came out in the 1800s, you'll be like, wow, that was a long time ago, and we had electric cars back then. So that's why, to me, technology and how we evolve is not really revolutionary, it's evolutionary. And yeah, this car now has Bluetooth. It definitely has a GPS, definitely has a place to charge your phone, right? USB chargers, etc. And it might even drive itself. But if you hit a traffic jam in the Bay Area or in LA, right, you're not going anywhere. So even if it drives itself, we're still stuck. So there's 4 problem statements that I want to talk about when we think about technology and innovation when it comes to fintech. And there's 4 things that people want, right? The first thing they want is access. And so they want access to their cash, they want access to their money, and they want access now. And the problem before, right, especially in the days of traditional banking, and you're probably too young to even remember this, but before the ATM came in experience, and the ATM, by the way, is 50 years old right now, Jake. So take note in that. The ATM in and of itself really changed the way that consumers do their banking, right? And how they access cash. Before the ATM came into existence, if I had to go into the bank, and bank had weird hours, right? Some bank branches closed at 3 and there's bank holidays. Your money was really locked away for, if you didn't get into the bank before it closed. And the ATM changed that. They gave you cash. But if you were, stuck between paychecks and you needed access to your cash, and you're waiting and your friends owed you money, where did you go? You had to go to a payday loans, right? That was someone handing out cash. And this was really, in the day of a cash economy where you wanted cash. Otherwise, you're waiting for that paycheck. And back in the day, the paycheck's coming via check, and you're waiting for those funds to clear. And this was even happening, a few years ago, right? And we're living in an instant world, right? Uber's coming at our door. Food is being delivered to us. Packages are showing up when we want. TV's on demand. But no one was ever delivering cash to your door. So if you wanted money, and I think back to Javier's question, we're in the world of push payments, right? So now we can send friends money instantly. Family can send you money if you need it. And this is all coming on your devices. And so technology has evolved to allow us to do this pretty much instantly. So now that you have access to your money, right, and your funds come really quick, you want to have control. And the problem before is that we might have been able to put our money, say, and access to, certain funds, right? Stock trading. Maybe the Amazon stock share was too high. And so what we've seen really in the past, couple of years is now there's these new apps, new technologies such as Robinhood, which allows you to buy incremental shares, which has really made gamification or using even good design thinking to create an app that gets people to start investing. And I'm not saying this is good or bad, right? Because we're potentially in the world of meme investing, right? Where a meme's telling you to buy. And I'm not saying that's good sound advice, but the apps and technology have allowed this. And again, this is evolutionary, it's not revolutionary. And even going back to cryptocurrency, right? Mining. So back in the day, especially if you think of the California gold rush, mining was relatively dangerous, right? You needed tools, you need to protect yourself, etc. And now we live with Bitcoin mining, right? You might have a big electricity bill. And, maybe back in the early days of crypto, there was a lot of thefts and people lost, millions. And I believe some guy lost billions of dollars, so they threw out a hard drive. So there was some, I don't call it danger for your life, but danger for protecting your funds that currently exists in the crypto space. The other thing when you now have, control of your money and you have more money is you want to be able to have control of how you start to buy, right? So back in the day, we had something called layaway. Again, this is probably way before your time. And layaway was a primitive form of installment payments. Think of it that way. So how that worked is if I wanted a vacuum cleaner, I could take my vacuum cleaner to this counter in the back of the store, and I could say to the associate, hey, I want to buy this vacuum cleaner. I'm going to come in on these dates. I'm going to make these payments. And I had complete control of how I wanted to spend and take this item. But again, this item was left in store. Today, what we have is called buy now, pay later. And so you would see across multiple websites right now, Klarna, Easy Pay, etc., all these installment payment options. And since we live in the world of instant gratification, you can take the object home right away. So again, this is the evolution of layaway. So now as consumers have more control and they have access, what do they want? They want choice. They want choice on how they pay for things, how they choose to pay for things. In the past, right, you carried a fat wallet and that was how you went into store and how you made purchases. Back in the day, there were some stores that only accepted cash, which definitely sounds weird currently after COVID, right? And even today, right, when you shop online, the experience of shopping online, especially at merchants where you don't have your account, you're still entering your credit card number, you're entering your shipping address, you're entering your billing address, they're asking you to create an account, you want to create a password, you have to follow these weird password rules. So it's a little frustrating experience. So how do we get to a better frictionless checkout experience? How do we give consumers the choice that they want? So now you can buy online and you can pick up in store, which definitely evolved in the past 2 years. So this is, an experience, again, that has evolved based upon consumer choice and preference. So when we think about payments today, we want to think about really where we're going with all these devices and how this is all going to happen. And we're all coming to that refrigerator, right, where we can store our Discover card, and we can put it in our refrigerator, and our refrigerator knows now that we're running out of milk or eggs, and that refrigerator is going to order that for us, and that refrigerator is going to authorize our card, and those eggs are going to show up at our door. And going back to the car, how I started initially, right, we can put a payment within our car, and that car now can authorize a gas pump, it can pay a toll booth, it can authorize a parking meter, all potentially from our car, and that would be a connected car experience. So this is really the evolution of payments and where we're headed, and how really fintech and some of these ideas come together. So the last sort of pain point or what we need from our consumers within the financial industry is trust. And we've all heard about data breaches. We've all heard about, our data being stolen, and potentially some of us have even been a victim of identity theft. And, us in the industry need to do a better job at communicating how we're ultimately protecting you through tokenization, through identity. And, back in the day, right, how you had to use your signature. Maybe you brought out your ID. And I'd venture to guess that if you have a credit card, you probably don't even spend time signing your credit card anymore. So today, we now use biometrics to secure your identity. We use multi-factor authentication. And so this is all part of where the industry is headed. And as we store your credit card and we store your credentials, we now tokenize them. So even if there was a data breach at a merchant, each merchant or every device, if you use Apple Pay or Google Pay, you actually don't have your actual credit card number in that device. It's now a token. And that's how we store it. So all these experiences to improve the payment experience, improve security, improve access, improve control, have all evolved over time by taking other industries and putting technology together and really building a partnership with banks, with fintechs. And eventually, as you're sort of leaning into, Javier, was crypto, right? Where does the intersection of crypto come into sort of a payments ecosystem? And I would say all these avenues that we talked about, trust, access, control, because using crypto apps, potentially you don't have control, you don't have access, you can't use them in all these merchants yet. Really, when they scale more is when you'll start to see the industry adopt them wider. So thank you all. Happy to take any more questions.
Yeah, I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you mentioned you have tokens in your system instead of the credit card information.
Yep.
How is it different?
Great question. So the advantage of tokens, there's two advantages of tokens, right? So what the credit card industry did, and there's a consortium where Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, UnionPay, and JCB. There's a company called EMVCo. What we all did is we came together and we're going to create a standard of tokenization. So token in and of itself still has 16 digits, and it looks very much like a credit card number. And tokens are pretty much invisible to you, the card member, and the user. So most consumers don't even know what a token is. So what we said as an industry, right, is that as we know payments are going to proliferate in all these experiences. So in your refrigerator, you're going to have a payment. In your car, you might have a payment. In all these IoT devices, on your mobile devices and your wearables, etc. And so the way the advantage of a token is that when we put a token in this device, and if ever this device is hacked, and I'm also going to talk about merchant tokens. When you store your credit card at Netflix and at Amazon and at Best Buy and at Target, all these places you store your card, which is called card on file, we take those, the merchant sends us those cards and say, we don't want to store this, send us a token. Those tokens are unique to your iPhone. That token's unique to Target. That token's unique to Best Buy. So for some reason, if someone ever hacked into Target again or Best Buy or your iPhone, that token that you got from Target, which would look like a 16-digit credit card number, could not transact at Best Buy, could not transact at Walmart, could not transact anywhere else. So what comes over with the token is also cryptogram or device ID. All this additional data is passed over to the payment networks. And we validate that and say, hey, this is, a Best Buy token. This is coming from, your iPhone, and we're going to make sure that it's all valid in milliseconds. Then we're going to authorize that transaction. The other advantage of tokens is that if for some reason you lose your Discover card, or it's lost or stolen, you can call us and we'll say we'll issue a new card, but that token won't change. So you don't have to go back to every merchant that you stored your credit card and say you have to update it. And so back to, I think, what we talked about initially is about how's a credit card business work, is that if you lost your credit card or expired and Netflix emailed you and say, hey, you need to update your card, you can't watch Netflix tonight. If they have a token, they don't need to do that. That token can continue to transact even if you lost your card, even if your card was stolen, even if your card expiration date occurred. So it's a good experience for the merchant because the merchant doesn't have to hound you to update your card. It's a good experience for you, the card member, because if you lost your card, you don't have to go back to all the places and update your card. And it's a good experience for us at Discover because we want to keep your card top of wallet. So if you, for some reason, your card expires and maybe you go back and just say, I have my Visa card on me, and you put your Visa card in Netflix, then we lost that transaction and that volume. So that's part of the advantage of proliferating tokens into the industry.
Okay, yeah, that's good information. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? I want to be thoughtful of your time, Asif, but so if anybody has maybe one final question, please feel free to ask it.
My name is Lila Vinod Kumar, and I was wondering, I know that the cost of a transaction is really, really small, and the share that the banks keep and what the merchant pays and what networks take, they're all like, percentage of a percentage kind of a deal. Yep. So in that scenario, I was just curious, how does cashback of like 5% and 10% work? Like, who actually funds this for the cardholders?
Yeah, so it's a combination, right? So it could be a merchant incentive we work with, or it could be coming from the card issuer directly. So it's really dependent. And so I think you're right about the fees being small at the transaction level, because obviously, and merchants are going to complain about transaction fees and all that, and the acquirers taking, everybody's skimming off the top is one way to think about it. But the bank, right? The bank ultimately holds the balance or holds the fees. So if you miss your payment, if you're carrying a balance forward, so they're making money too on the fact that they're setting credit. And so if you just make your minimum payment, or you don't make your full payment, or you miss your payment, so there's fees to be made there as well. And think of millions and millions, or think of billions of transactions happening every second across the globe. So yeah, everything adds up.
Well, thank you, Asif. I really appreciate you being here today. You've definitely taught us quite a bit. I definitely need to put my Discover card top of wallet. We'll talk offline on how best to do that.